I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending October the 11th and really 12th again, as we had Saturday trade once again. Brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards. Joplin's going to start bright and early at 6 o'clock in the morning, which is very typical for them. They're looking for about 6,000 head of feeder cattle on Monday here. $12 in a month is what we've gained. If you remember, the lowest of lows that we got following the fire at Finney County Tyson Meats there was about $97, and that was a month ago this past week. And we've gained 12 bucks cash since that on your negotiated fat cattle trade, and that's pretty darn good. And we've got a lot of things that are really going positive for your cattle market. You know, we've got a lot more awareness out there about the importance of keeping competition in our cattle markets, both fed cattle and feeder cattle and calves and all the way through. And whether or not we can do anything about it, I think there's a lot more awareness out there, and people are consciously trying to market their cattle in a competitive manner more often, and I think that's very important. We've started to get some things going better for us with the trade. Our great President Donald Trump this week, late in the week, announced that he's got the first phase of his China deal agreed upon. They've still got to get it signed, but the Chinese also made an announcement, and they have acknowledged that they've agreed on that first phase of the new trade deal with them, a bilateral deal. Included in that is China is going to begin purchasing $40 to $50 billion worth of U.S. ag products annually, and it also includes protections for our U.S. intellectual properties. It also gives some of our U.S. financial companies more access to China's market. All this came about in the 13th round of negotiations. So you think they haven't been trying to get something going on there? You know, past administrations have just left China alone and continued to allow them to abuse us and trade, but we're finally getting something done here. In return for all this that China's doing, Trump will not raise the tariffs that were set to go up here within the next few weeks. So this is the first phase. They're thinking there'll be for sure 2 or 3 phases of this, but it's great that they've acknowledged that they will be purchasing a lot more of our U.S. ag products. We don't know if or how much of that is going to be beef, but we know that China has been suffering with that African swine fever, and so we know that they're going to need proteins. We know that they're probably going to be buying more pork from us, and they know that they will be buying some beef, because the kind of pork they need, they're the biggest producers of it. So we may not be able to fill all in, but they're going to be buying some beef. Hopefully they'll be buying it directly from us. If they're not buying it directly from us, we will be able to fill back in those holes where they are getting it. So it's going to be a positive deal altogether. What else has been going on positive here at your cattle markets? We noticed that on the last kind of nationwide publicly reported nutrition reports that come out that said that beef is once again healthy for us. Those of us that eat it all the time know that that's true. So we know that we've got that going for us too. So that's a great thing. You know, they may come out tomorrow and say that it's bad for you again. But right now, the latest reports and nutritional values are saying that beef, they can't find any reason why it would cause you to have more cancer, more heart disease, or anything like that. So that's a good thing. We just need to continue to promote beef and beef production in a positive light. We definitely need that. And you know, we've got all this fake meat out there pushing us, and folks saying that they think that cattle is ruining the environment and things like that. We really need positive promotion for beef eating, beef consumption, and beef production. And it would be great if we had some kind of a program where we could all donate, a dollar, two or three, every time we sold a bovine animal, all of us that raise cattle, and then they could put that money towards positive promotion of beef. It would be real easy to do. They could collect that money every time one of them slaughtered. Otherwise, if they did it all through the transition in the animal's life, you would put that burden on your brand inspectors and your sale barns and people like that, and you would spend a lot of that money just trying to get it collected. So it'd be much easier just to do it at your slaughterhouse, and then we could have a board together that was looking at things in a positive way, and they would put out positive promotional campaigns. They'd get some real good producers, put some commercials out there, and show people raising cattle with green grass and clear waters and their children there, and happy, healthy cattle out there, and then people enjoying the steaks. And it would be a real positive promotion, and we would quit having so many of these people down on beef, thinking that somehow we're abusing the animals and that it's inhumane the way we treat them and things like that. It would be wonderful if we had a program like that. But the program we have, they've gotten into these long-term deals where we don't see what's happening with the money, and it's not doing anything positive. And then we've got these attacks from fake meat, and we've got rules set in there that we can't fight back against it. I can see us having rules in there. We can't disparage other proteins, but who knew that this fake protein was going to come in whenever we established those rules? But and then you start hearing these reports where these dollars that we've worked hard for and are putting into this campaign, they're being misused and misappropriated and things like that. Really, really frustrating. I tell you what. If that stuff is happening and the guys are knowing about it, which we know that it has to a certain degree, that's low. I tell you what, that's pretty darn low. But what else is going on? North Korea has got their own African swine fever problem. They actually mentioned it. We don't get much news out of North Korea because it's all state news, kind of like the fake news that we have here in the U.S., but that North Korea evidently has got their hands full because they have mentioned it. So now they're starting to see what a problem they've got, and now South Korea fears it's going to make their problem even worse, and it is wiping these hogs out. The way that they knew it for sure is they had feral hogs that are running along the border there between North and South Korea, and they found those to be infected with it. And evidently it's pretty much wiped them out in North Korea. And actually, you wouldn't have thought this, but some of the households, the individuals that live there, they raised a few pigs themselves to kind of help survive in that dictatorship socialist economy there. And so they don't have the best ways to inoculate those hogs and try to keep any disease out. They don't have any safeguards. It's going to probably wipe them out. And actually, they think there's more of those hogs out there than there are in the facilities that the state owns. But, it's going to infiltrate South Korea now because they're such a close neighbor. It's going to come to the North America, guys. There's no way to keep it out. This stuff is bad news, and it just takes over and kills most of the pigs within a week and just absolutely wipe you out. So far, there's no fear of it in making humans sick, and it doesn't affect cattle. And when it does come, you're probably going to want to have some cattle on hand because it's going to wipe out our pork production in this country probably too, but it's just almost everywhere on the globe, and it's going to make its way to North America. And so it's probably going to be a big boon for your cattle, but we hate to see it, at the expense of another ag income, and it's going to be a bad deal. But just be aware of what's going on out there. Pork is 80% of the protein in North Korea. They're going to have something too. Not that they care if their people starve. Most of their people don't have enough to eat anyway. but they're at some point they're going to have to get some protein in there for North Korea. Where they're going to get that, how it's going to happen, we don't know, but wherever they get it, it's going to leave holes that we can fill in behind. Okay, let's get to talking about this week's markets. Your October live cattle futures. Monday it was up 90. Tuesday down 7 cents. Wednesday up 30 cents. Thursday up a quarter. And Friday up 72 cents with October live cattle contracts ending the week at 109.45, up $2.10. October feeder cattle. Monday was down 27, Tuesday up 32. Wednesday was a day where we were way up big, 247, and nobody really knew why, other than we knew that a lot of your fund investors were getting out of their shorts on your feeder cattle, and so they were having to buy, and that was enough to make the market go up because there hasn't been a whole lot of play in that feeder cattle. Thursday, your October feeders were down 20, and Friday they were also down 20, with October feeder cattle contracts ending the week at 144.10, up $2.13. November feeders 144 and a quarter, up $2.88. Your December live cattle were up or ended the week at 112.15, up $1.38. And April fats, which is always the highest, is broke at $1.20 and now trading at 120.20. But a lot of us think it's probably going to hit 130 or better. This thing is getting pretty good, and the supplies are going to get back in our favor soon after the first of the year. And I think we've got a lot of momentum here on your cattle markets, and we're not going to get back to the record prices or anything, but it's going to get significantly better than it's been for quite a while here. Your fat cattle trade. Through Thursday last week on negotiated sales, we hadn't sold very many, only 9,000. Market was 108 to 110. It was higher there, kind of a buck higher in most spots. 170 to 171 dress basis, but guys were kind of reluctant to sell, and so we hadn't seen a whole lot of sales through Thursday. Friday we saw the Southern Plains break free, 108, and then turning mostly 109. So the lion's share of your prices in the Southern Plains would be 109. So that's that's sure higher there. Northern Plains 171 to mostly 172 on Friday. But then, like we did the previous week, we started seeing Saturday trade 110 to mostly 111. So, that's great. So at least a couple of bucks higher or more on your fat cattle market this week. But that 111 was in western Nebraska, Colorado, up there in Wyoming, in that area up there. That's where they're the shortest on cattle, and that's where it's been running the premium. But 111 on a Saturday morning, that's pretty darn good. And a lot of those cattle, they need them right away. They haven't been buying a lot of cattle in the negotiated open market, and it's starting to show up. Even though we're a little bit backed up on market-ready cattle, we say in Kansas, and now that they're starting to gripe about heavy carcasses, but also they don't want any selects. So can't have it both ways. If we're going to feed cattle harder, try to get rid of the selects, we're going to have heavier carcasses. But we've gained a lot of ground. Like I said, 12 bucks in a month. That's a lot of ground to gain on a negotiated fat cattle market when we don't have a heck of a lot of competition in it, because so much of it's already taken care of in the formulas, at least 80%. But box beef cutout values found some support. Your beef purchasers were felt kind of betrayed after that fire deal. They were real reluctant to pay any prices there for a while, so market really dropped on your cutout values. But this week they finally got short enough and enough time that kind of healed things that they started coming back around. Box beef cutout values, your average trade for the week last week on choice cuts, 214.12. That was up $1.54 compared to the weighted average from the previous week. But we ended on Friday at 215.66, so even higher than that by the end of the week. Your average trade for last week on select cuts, 186.89, up 25 cents. So still growing that choice select spread, $27.23 on your spread between the weighted averages on the bulk of last week's trade, and a pretty average movement, but still a good movement of 630 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter for the week, 645,000. That was 6,000 more than the previous week and just 2,000 less than the same week a year ago when we had all the plants up and running. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central ended the week at 143.69, down 53 cents for the week. And you think, well, was the market really lower? No, your cash feeders were mostly steady. It was higher early as your early markets were trying to catch up with some gains that we saw middle of the week before. So it was higher early in the week, and then it was kind of steady the week later on in the week. But for the most part, it was mostly steady. But we did see our index levels drop a little bit because we're starting to see more and more calves creep into that 700 to 899 pound range, which makes up your index levels on both your real-time index on your CME cash feeder cattle index. But let's look at some markets that we have here late in the week. Crawford, Nebraska, they had their big 40-year anniversary of the Hunter family owning Crawford sale barn there in Crawford, Nebraska. And they also had the LMA qualifier there for your auctioneers for the World Champion Livestock Auctioneer Contest. They have to qualify at these regional events, and man, did they have a competitive one there on Friday. But a lot of the top dogs were there. I want to congratulate my friend Chuck Bradley from Alabama. I tell you what, he is a badass when it comes to selling. He's going to win all the hardware within the next few years, and he hasn't been doing it all that long. But good guy there. Really enjoy being around Chuck. Some of my other good friends that made the top 10, I want to congratulate them. Of course, congratulate everybody, but the guys that I really know that I like, Steve Goddard, he made it, Neil Beret, Eric Dries, Kyle Lehman, and Dustin Smith all made the top 10, and all friends of mine, and I congratulate all those guys. They're good guys. But Crawford had 4,900 head there altogether on Friday, and actually 3,000 cattle weren't able to make it because of the snowstorms and the bad roads and everything. Then cattle wouldn't have been in there. Man, they'd have had a heck of a run if they'd had all those, but plenty of cattle to have that contest. Actually, the calves over 600 pounds were $4 to $8 lower than the previous week, even though they had the big contest and everything. But it's mostly due to the weather. And that first snowstorm, that kind of caught people off guard, being in the middle of October like that. You usually don't see those for another month or 6 weeks. But lighter weights, under 600 pounds in Crawford there, were steady to $4 higher. Let's look at some of your market reports. Here's your automated market report from Cattle Market Central, right there out of the sale, right from the block where those championship auctioneers were selling. But look at your best tested weights. How about the 4-weight steer calves? 812 head of them, averaged 458 at 168.17. That was up over $2. Your 5 weights, almost 1,200 head of 5-weight steers, average 551 at 158.89, and that sounds pretty impressive for that many head, but that was still a buck off of the weighted average from the previous week. Now look at some heifers. 634 head of 5-weight heifers, average 549, 139.79, and that was a good $5 lower on the weighted average than just the previous week. Look at some other individual quotes. Imperial, Nebraska had a good sale on Friday. 61 head of 824 pound yearling steers, 153. And we're not seeing any big yearling feeders anymore, so you can almost name your price on them. The problem is getting enough of them together to be able for guys to make loads. But when you have a good square load there, they'll sure bring it. And then guys will get in on the internet or whatever they got to do to get a hold of them, because there's just not many yearling feeders out there. But the light calf's so good in Imperial too. 85 head of 450 pound steers, light steer calves in Imperial, bring $187. Wow. And then the best quote that I saw really was from Fort Scott, Kansas, and they were 72 head of 676 pound steer calves, bring $159.75. That's a look at your week's markets from a home DV auction office here in Canyon, Texas. We'll talk to you next week.